It's fine right there. We're just going to be videotaping you, and then I'm going to record you.
Okay.
An audio recording as well. But the way the interview will go is I'm going to start off and read a short statement that just says who we are, what day it is, why we're here, and then I'm going to ask you a number of questions. And we're obviously very interested in your involvement in fair housing in Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
But we want to talk about anything else you're interested in talking about related to the civil rights movement in Lawrence, the pool issue, whatever other memories you have. So when I'm finished with the questions, I'm just going to let you talk about any other things that you can think of that I haven't discussed with you, if that sounds good. Okay, so we'll get started if you're ready.
Oh, I'm ready. I've been ready for 80 years.
Today is October 21st, 2016. I am local historian Tom Arnold interviewing Dr. Jesse Milan in his apartment in the Victory Hills Senior Living Community in Kansas City, Kansas, for the City of Lawrence Fair Housing Ordinance 50th Anniversary Oral History Project. At the time the ordinance passed in July 1967, Dr. Milan was a teacher in the Lawrence Public School System and the president of the Lawrence chapter of the NAACP.
That's right.
Dr. Milan, please tell me a little bit about your background, including what brought you to Lawrence initially.
What brought me to Lawrence? Well, I was in Kansas City. I was at my senior year at Sumner High School. In '46, I was going to graduate at Sumner. And I was on Kansas Avenue delivering my paper. I sold a call paper every Friday. And on the parallel streetcar was a sign that says 2 years of military, 4 years of college. I said, what? So I signed up and volunteered for the military. And when I got out of the military and I applied for Kansas University, and they assisted me with a federal government financial assistance from that, of my salary. I spent 2 years and 1 year in Anderson, Alabama, and I got that. And then I was stationed at I can't think of the name of the base, and there. And we were from my place where I took my, what do you call it, the initial...
Your basic training?
Yeah, well, no, as a soldier.
Okay.
And they shipped me to this base in Anderson, Alabama. I put the name of it. It was, at that time, it was very segregated. Only a black group that I belonged to at that time. And when we arrived at the base commander of that came to accept us and receive us and talk to us and inspect us. As he went around, and there are 22 of us, and he went to his office and made an appointment of one of us to serve as a military policeman. You know, the Army policeman that we are? And guess who they chose? Me. And I was surprised. And it's because I was asked by the leader to give a demonstration of drilling the squad. And I drilled a squad because I did that in high school. I was at Sumner High School. I was a graduate of Sumner High School. They took my picture many years later after that, and it's on the wall right there. See that picture behind you? That's on Minnesota Avenue. I'm one of the first black persons they put up there on the picture. Then they put a few after that. But anyway, I was pleased, and we did a lot of work there. And I was transferred from there to, after 1 year, I was transferred from there to up north. I forget the name of the city. But anyway, I was transferred from there to the base in Honolulu, Hawaii. And I made the football team, played football. And another big mistake, I was chosen from the base of my performance as a football player during the seasons, as a quarterback and right halfback, a black person. In those days, there wasn't too many black quarterbacks playing professional football, period. And I had a great time playing. I used to have fun coming to the line of scrimmage with the ball, because I did a lot of deception. And I said to the big, "Hey, Big Daddy, I'm coming your way." Oh, they did a heck of a time, but I played good. We won the game, but we lost game, we won the game. But it was an honor to have been chosen for so many things like that. I didn't apply for it. They just liked the way you perform.
What years were those when you were in the Army? Do you recall?
Oh.
Late 1940s?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after you left the Army and decided to use your GI Bill to
Finish my work to go to KU.
To go to KU, why did you choose the University of Kansas and Lawrence?
Well, I attended, my kids attended school in Lawrence. I had 4 kids. They graduated. They all, not all ones over the years. And I had a lot of friendships in Lawrence and a lot of contact. And I belonged to Kappa Alpha Psi, which I lived in a fraternity house in Lawrence, Mu chapter. And so how I got there was a lady teacher at the University of Kansas. She was in charge of the women's department for women attending KU in the PE department. And I did a lot of teaching other members of the class. We all did. All of us, we would have to do this day, we would do this day, one day. And I was appointed by her to teach in a public school system. I said, yeah, I'll give it a try, that's why I'm here. But she didn't just send me to the black school, she sent me to Hillcrest. And I went up there and I had a great reception. And I did a lot of things. One of my most famous philosophy was using the thesis in Matthew 30:32. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And so, because at the elementary grades, they're not in the classroom solid in terms of playing games. I didn't just play games. I said the object, because many of them have very poor listening skills because the teacher would come by and do things with them. And I said my introduction to them was that I am here to help you learn how to play games with each other and do other things. And the object of that is to help you improve your listening skills, to listen to the teacher, to see what she says to you and how to explain the one of the most, it's even today, difficult problem for the students is mathematics, arithmetic. And so they improved that. And the other way I prefer, other activity that I use, one of them was not just that, was square dancing. Have you square danced? Have you square danced?
Oh, no.
What? How could you go up without square dancing?
I'm going with yes.
What?
I have, yes,
I would say yes when I was very young, but not in recent years.
And one of my most mechanized square dancing, I have all my records and things that I did, was the Kansas song called "Home on the Range." Now you doze around your comely lady one time around, then you seesaw once around your tall, and then you allum and left with the lady on your left, ran right and left around the hall. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, one never heard a discouraging word. Home on the Range. I still have it. And I taught it in Lawrence, Kansas, and then my population grew, so I went to every elementary school in the city of Lawrence, Kansas.
So after you taught there as a student, obviously the school system was happy with you and they hired you as the first African-American teacher in the Lawrence school system. I think that was in 1954.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it like being the first African-American teacher in the school system? Did you feel welcomed or did you feel...
Well, I felt welcome because I was hired in Lawrence after that. I was hired in Lawrence first. But I had a lot of community relations. There were not too many white folk, but segregation was very, very difficult. Because I worked for the city recreation department as assistant superintendent of recreation for the city of Lawrence. I was the first one to do that, first black person. And the object was for me to improve the quality of the performance and the program of the city recreation department. And so what I negotiated with the KU and other was to bring students to the basketball game and football game, and as I did that, so as a result of working with Hillcrest, I reached out to all of the students because I was a recreation person to work with the city to put a playground at Pinckney Elementary School and Hillcrest Elementary School and Watkins and all of that. Now, one of my most fascinating experiences was that one day I got a call after I received a call from the Klux Klan, and they did a lot of things to try to keep me from being a black teacher to white folks because that's a violation. But I said the only thing black were the shoes they wore to school. and many of the white teachers were very friendly with me and asked me, said, well, Dr. Milan, why don't we go and have a good time in Kansas City? I said, well, we can do that, but in order for me to do that, you'd have to give me a check with $1,000. He said, we can't do that. I said, that's why I can't go. You think I'm going to go? And go? At that time, the relationship of races were very, very rigid. Because the Ku Klux Klan, they threw bombs at my house. They threw fire bombs. I lived in, when I first started in teaching, I lived over in North Lawrence. I can't think of the apartment. It's a little block south of that. What's the name of that school in elementary school in Lawrence?
Woodlawn.
Woodlawn, and so we lived in that apartment right there, and a person from the city was interested in me expanding because my family had a baby, and we were looking for a house, and he came by and introduced himself and helped me build a house on 1211 West 5th Street. You know what that is? It's the end of the white movement, but the beginning of the black population in the area in that section of Lawrence. Because the street that on 5th Street goes all the way through, but on the west side of me was one black person, on the right side of me was a white male. But they told me he was a businessman. And the Ku Klux Klan took and brought a lot of fire things, and threw it in my house, and it landed in my garage and on my roof, and the guy next door would catch it and put it out before it caught a fire, and had a lot of red stuff of those things in my backyard. And I guess they finally stopped because I was not in a white neighborhood. That vacant lot was at the end of the white population movement. And he said, well, I'll put it here. He said, you can do it here, here, there. At that time, my wife was working at the hospital in Leavenworth. And she was an occupational
Therapist.
yes. And so it wasn't too far from Lawrence to go at the highway and go to Leavenworth. So, but across the street, I had a black family that really protected my house because they see the flame going to my house, and I was out teaching. And they would go there and put them out. And one day I tried to get in my garage and it was full of those ashes, and I had to clean it out. So I had a tremendous effort from the Klux Klan and Ku Klux Klan. So one day I got a call from to meet some students on the lot in Lawrence, Kansas. 5 white boys and 5 black kids, because I was assistant superintendent for the city of Lawrence, and I can't think of his name now, because he was a superintendent, and we did a lot of things together, and he let me do a lot of things together. And when I walked up at about 6 o'clock that evening, 5 white boys over here, 5 black boys over here, they all had guns. I taught all of them. And I said, it's amazing to see you. Why do you have those guns? And they said, we have a special mission to kill you. I said, you gotta be kidding. Why would you want to kill me when I taught you in school? This ain't no school. So I said, well, I'll do my best. But remember, I said you have to remember what the Bible says. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. And I'm sure you haven't read the Bible. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to kill me. Now, the black kids were going to protect me, but the white kids wanted to kill me. But guess what? After my talking with them and saying, well, you know, it's interesting how we get along in the classroom, and they all remember that. They remember one of the most fascinating things was the activities that I would introduce them. And I took them all, from 200, 300 kids to every home football game, and had the recreation department and the parents to buy the tickets. I took them to the basketball games, and it was white as black. And so the kids all enjoyed that. So they both just turned away and walked away and did not kill me. But the Klux Klan did not give up. So I bought a house from 1211 West 5th Street to buy a place that I wouldn't let them know where I was moving. So I bought a house, and my family grew. At that time I had 3 kids. I ended up with 4 kids. 10th in Alabama, you know where that is? That's 1 block north of the stadium. 2 blocks, north of the stadium, right on the corner, big 2-story house. Okay? And we had a great time. And I had a great time with the friendship with the kids. And all the summer, I ran a playground for the kids in the city. Not just one place, at school districts near their neighborhood. McAllister, or behind the junior high school there on what's it located? Not Main Street, but it's close to the Main Street in Lawrence. and Hillcrest and Sunset and Northland and Woodlawn. And it was just a tremendous experience that I had. And I had many supporters from the white family, and I had many of them that were working with the Ku Klux Klan. And they helped me, and the kids, I was reported, some of them would have a meeting every Friday in their school, how to protect me. And they did a good job there, and the good Lord. The last one was when, on 10th in Alabama, they drove up, and my house was on the east side of the street, and they drove up on the west side of the street and threw a bomb over their car, and it going toward my house on 10th in Alabama. And it exploded while in flight. Now, we were the only black families on that dam in that neighborhood, and all the white folks come running down there to see what happened, to protect me. So I had a tremendous population in the white population as well, that they were not all Ku Klux Klan, male and female. And that's the reason I'm still here today. Had it not been for them, I wouldn't be here.
So your neighbors in that all-white neighborhood, they were supportive of having you live there. They welcomed you.
Yeah, because they knew I taught their kids.
Right.
See? I had a tremendous child population.
Yeah. So as a teacher, you mentioned you were welcomed by your fellow teachers. The Ku Klux Klan did not like having you there. How about your students and the students' parents? Did they, even the white parents and students, did they welcome you? Were they hospitable?
Through the message of their children. One of the second most important thing is I developed a square dance club. And they enjoyed doing the Texas Star and this, as well as the kids. So my job as a recreation department for the city, not just for black population, but for everyone. And one of the most popular things was that I had many parents to support me because I would take their kids to a basketball game at the Allen Fieldhouse when it was built. And I would take them to the football game around Kansas Stadium. And help get the tickets through the recreation department so that they wouldn't have to pay a whole lot of money for it. And so I got many gifts for tickets to take the kids to, and they all were very, very pleased. So it was the way I treated children, not because they were white, not because they were black, because they were all God's children. And when I became a professor at Baker University, that was another wonderful experience. Not only did I teach physical education activities, but I taught other kind of subjects of anthropology. And what happened was that they assigned me as the professor from Baker, from the school system in Lawrence, in Baldwin, I'm sorry. When I became the first black professor at Baker University, they assigned me not just to teach the students and work with the teachers and performers of the school, but to work as the professors to go to the public school system in Baldwin, Kansas, for the placement of student teachers. Do you realize how many black schools there were in Baldwin, Kansas? None. But the most fascinating experience, I had to go to talk to the white superintendent about the placement of students at Baker University. Oh, that'd be fine. They were familiar with Baker, but they didn't know. But they were amazed because I was not a white professor asking to do that. And they were pleased. It was very successful. Not because I was black, but because the kids loved it and I did it. Because my philosophy was love your neighbor as yourself. And as a result, the Could you get that phone and hand it to me over there?
Sure.
I'll tell him. Excuse me. Hello? Excuse me. I'm in a. Well, 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 I'm not undecided, but I'm in a conference with a major city population from the Lawrence, Kansas. So call me back at another time. Bye-bye. They want to interview me about my election process.
Okay. You're in high demand, sir. Let me ask you, when you first arrived in Lawrence, and in the early years, the 1950s and 1960s, while you were living there, how would you describe the racial climate, the relationship between the white and the black?
Very, very, very digital. Because the black population lived in certain sections. The most integrated population was in North Lawrence. The black folk lived on this side, and the white folk lived on that side. And there was a very limited space. What got me where I was in terms of increasing the performance and the relationship was, what was it? I can't think of his name. He was superintendent of the city recreation department. And while I was at KU, and I was an official of the Kansas Relays, and he got to know me quite well because I negotiated with him for getting tickets and spaces to take kids to the game, irrespective of the race. Well, that's one thing I did. I took black, white kids. I didn't take them. They met me at the stadium at the gate to get in. And they had a special section for all students, and they went in. Now, one of the things that was fascinating was that after I graduated from KU, and I was assigned as an official in the KU Relays. And I was there for 20 years. And I have a special uniform that I wore. I still have it. It's in there. I'll be wearing it tomorrow. Every Saturday, I wear my pants and my shirt. I'll show it to you. But what happened is that at Baker, there wasn't that very strong relationship between the white students and the black students. But I created an organization because there were some white students who had never met a black teacher. And that was strange to them. And I kept saying to them, I use the Bible as a thesis to help me understand who I am and what my responsibility is. I know I'm called a nigger and this and that, and I'm black. We couldn't do this, we couldn't do that. Even to go to the theater in Lawrence, you had to sit in a black section in the show. Did you know that?
Good afternoon, residents. It's about 1:45 and it's on a Friday afternoon. So that means happy hour is right around the corner. We're going to have tea and punch and wine and beer as well as appetizers. So come make your way down. Jeff Johnson will be here today performing for us. That starts in about 15 minutes in the grill.
Well, now what they do at that session, they have a token of some cake or something, wine and beer and mixed drink.
Oh, that sounds very nice.
Oh, a lot of folks get that beer, get that wine. I don't drink wine. When I was a student at KU, because I ran track in high school at KU, at KU Stadium. Sumner High School would go there, but it was a track session that was a mixture with the race. It just high school across the state of Kansas sent their track team to KU for the relay on Friday and Saturday. And while I was there, I was appointed to work from the PE department, from the physical education department at the KU, as one of the members of the school to help provide officials. So I was an official for the high jump, triple jump, discus throw, and javelin, boys and girls. Fascinating. And I had a great time doing that. And I had many students to do what I wanted them to do.
Good.
They gave me when I retired, they gave me a present here at this place. They gave me a cap, one of the things you wear, and a shirt, and a jacket. They didn't give me the jacket, I bought it. And so I was a very proud person to be an official for many kids. I look at where I traveled in Lawrence, on both sides of the city, very segregated. The most integrated section in Lawrence was North Lawrence, mainly because they were divided, but they all lived in the same damn place. And I had many Klux Klan that chased me down the main street, because I had a car at that time. And but the white folks protected me. I wouldn't be here if it had not been for them, those students. If the students and God had not protected me, I wouldn't be. Because at 10th and Alabama, they took that big bomb and threw it at my house. It exploded before it arrived. And all the white folks came down and gave me guns. I didn't want no guns.
You had started describing some of the forms of segregation and discrimination in Lawrence, besides the neighborhoods, but also you mentioned in the movie theater you had to sit in a separate section.
Well, you couldn't buy a house any place.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about the different kinds of discrimination, including in housing.
You had to, there was a limited section in East Lawrence. You ever hear of the New York School, elementary school?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That was where the first grades go, up to the 6th grade. And the only place there was a change in education was when they got to junior high and they ultimately high school. They didn't have but one high school and one junior high. And they all went together. And I taught at the junior high and the high school. Now, housing was limited. Along New York City was a population, in Lawrence, in East Lawrence, a limited section along Alabama, because I also studied at a house in Alabama. On Mississippi, the fraternity houses were across from the stadium. The Capitol House was about just across from the entrance on the Mississippi Street, and the Alphas was down the street, and across the street on 11th and Alabama, I think that's the main street that leads to the Mississippi Street. Mississippi leads to the stadium, up to KU entrance, was a black family that owned right on the corner there, and it was next door to the Alpha House. And the other section that was limited, there were no black family in the Hillcrest section of the town. There were no black family in a certain section in the South Lawrence, because they used to have farmers out there. There were some farms in the areas where it was large. But they were not mixed. They were limited. So Lawrence was very segregated housing and employment. Now, you could not go downtown to Lawrence and go to any of those places to eat, except some places had a special section for black people to sit, to eat in their place. You could not just go in and go sit down. You couldn't go in and go to the store. You had to sit in a certain section. Now, that didn't deny the white folks to sit in there, but they sit in that section because their section was full. And we couldn't ask them to leave. We were asked to leave from the show. So it was a very segregated city.
How would you compare Lawrence to the city you spent some time in Alabama?
Alabama, I didn't spend time in the city. I was in similar locations. It was very segregated in the South.
Was Lawrence as bad as the South or not as bad as the South? Or how would you compare?
It was as bad because you could only live certain places. You could only go certain places. At KU, to an extent, it wasn't as integrated, but they couldn't segregate the stadium. Those who tried, we got rid of that. Because I served as the assistant superintendent for the city recreation department, so I didn't have recreation activities just for the black students, I had it for all students. And that's why my organization at Baker is still going strong today. I'll tell you about it in just a minute. But so the city was segregated. It had certain limitations. The housing law that was being discussed in Topeka was not thoroughly enforced. Because the persons who were selling houses didn't just go any place. They were very selective of who they would offer. I was one of those selected persons because when I was living in North Lawrence, in that segregated community, they said, well, we got some land on Fifth Street over in Lawrence, West Lawrence, and we'd like to build a house for you and your wife, and I had 2 kids. And I said, well, that's fine. And they built a house at 1211 West Fifth Street. It was well welcomed by the white population. Now, who they were, but cause I don't know who they were that threw that stuff in my house. And when I moved to 10th in Alabama, I did the same thing. Because I was only a black resident on 10th in Alabama, on 10th in Alabama. If you ever go down to Alabama, that big white house is still there. Because about 3 weeks ago, my daughter was in town from California, and she was born in that house. And she went by and looked at the house from a history standpoint. It's still there. It's still there. But what really protected me were the white kids I taught. I thought they really protected me.
Very good.
Because if they had not, I'd have been gone. And God protected me. How you treat them. I would go. There was a grocery store right on the corner of 9th in Massachusetts. Not a grocery store, a drugstore. What's the name of that drugstore? It had a restaurant section in there.
Round Corner Drugstore, was that?
It's right on the corner of the west side of, I think, 9th in Massachusetts. I don't know if it's still there or not. But it had a place where you go in and buy your drink, pop and so forth, and you can get a hamburger. They didn't have an extensive cooking place, but you could get a brief sandwich and so forth. And I could go there, and I knew who the people were serving because they knew me from my teaching. But it didn't mean that I could go anywhere in that store. I had to go to a special place that provided.
Tell me a little bit more about your experience trying to find trying to move to different neighborhoods. And I know there were some stories that the real estate agents would not show you all the place.
They never did.
Yeah.
They
Tell me
never.
about some of your experiences with real estate agents and some of the experiences that other black families had trying to find housing, and how the real estate agents would try to steer you away from certain neighborhoods towards others.
Well, mainly because the population was located that way. The black population was back over here, and the white population there place else. So it was a very interesting person who wanted to provide you a house. They didn't build houses outside the black neighborhood. They built houses in the black neighborhood. One of the most concentrated area was off of the main street there, off of the highway, near north of the stadium. Now on Alabama, on Main Street, where I first lived when I was going to college before I lived in a fraternity house, 824 Main. You know where that is?
Roughly, yes.
Right in the middle of the block. There were a few black folks in that neighborhood. Okay? And those who were selling real estate didn't just take you any place. There was vacant land where persons have given up the farming and it now become a place for building. And they could not build a house just anywhere. And even the real estate, there were one person in a real estate, I can't think of his name right now, because see, my brother, my relative in Kansas City was in the real estate business. In Kansas, the same thing, segregated stuff. So they knew how to look at that, but I was lucky that the white fellow found this land, and he said he knew it was not in a white neighborhood, just a vacant piece of land next to white neighborhood and black neighborhood over that way. The other thing was that they would have a parade. I got some of that stuff in Massachusetts, coming down Massachusetts, and you would not find an integrated group. You'd find a black group playing the instrument going down the neighborhood. And when I took it to the basketball game, they sat in a section that wasn't segregated. Because I had white and black students. I knew each other, and some didn't know each other. But that. So it was, Lawrence at that time was not a free city. Black folks, Mexicans. Now the Mexicans, they caused more problem than we did, because some of them could speak the English language. But in the public school system, they went to the white school system. They didn't go to the black school system. Only black folks went to the public school system. And when they got to the high school, that's when they began to integrate the school system. Went junior high and high school.
So did Brown versus the Board of Education, when that passed in 1954, did that affect the Lawrence schools? And
Yes.
can you describe that? That was about the same time you started teaching. So how did that affect the schools?
Because they were segregated, and they didn't just open up. They improved the quality of the brown school, black schools. And as they built new schools, there were no black neighborhoods. They were next door. For example, where I built my house on Pinckney Elementary School, it's just east of it. 1211 West 5th Street. 5th Street was a street east of what's that main street, main highway going through Lawrence?
6th Street.
6th Street.
6th Street, yeah.
Well, see, 5th Street, just north of that. And now I can't think of the name of the streets right now, but I know there's a black neighborhood that went from my house west for 3 or 4 blocks. And in the north of that was some that had farmland that they dealt at. And the other section, and there were none near Hillcrest Elementary School, except on Main Street. What was the address on Main?
824?
824 Main. How you know that, man?
Taking notes, sir.
That's right. 824 Main. After you leave that, on the other side of that house that the Woodies lived was white families on the corner. All the neighborhood across the street. How he got that house, I don't know. Because when I entered KU, I stayed as a rent student in their house and walked the campus every day. But there was not just any place you could go.
Right. So if you
What helped me was when I was teaching in the white public school system, I became a population to help move out of the neighborhood. Not out of the neighborhood, but where there was another facility. It was very difficult. And the real estate agents were very careful of where they found vacant housing for black people.
So if you were a black family moving to Lawrence or a black student coming to Lawrence to go to KU, the real estate agents would only steer you to certain neighborhoods? And
Yes, because there were black homes that provide housing. Go KU.
Good afternoon, residents. It's 2 o'clock on a Friday, so that means happy hour has started. We have Jeff Johnson down
Oh,
here
I go
today.
there. You know what that means? We go down there and sing songs
Especially, so he's
and
going to be playing
I didn't drink no
country
wine.
and a little bit of gospel, a little bit of everything. So come on down, 2 o'clock, happy hour started in the grill.
And then, once every week that happens, several days a week. But what the real estate agents knew this segregated area, where to look for vacant land, vacant houses, and apartment buildings were not open until after the passage of the Fair Housing Ordinance. And I was very interested in the preparing of that. I had some friends in Topeka that I'd go and visit. We would talk about why it's important. I said, oh, so you look at the Constitution and what does it say? Citizens. We are citizens. So we should be enabled to access whatever we want to do, not because of our race, but that white population. Let me tell you, buddy, it was very strong, very segregated. And I was exceptional. That's why I got that first black professor at Baker University. I was giving not the end, but what's the name of the place? It's a building with a green, I can't think of the name of it now, but a black family owned it. It had a little restaurant and a bar and a pool table. Black cats go down and play pool and drink beer, and it's a tavern. It's a black tavern. I'm trying to think, I can't think of the name of it now, but I know where it was. And one of the professors from Baker University knew the owner of that black facility, and he came once in a while, and I was giving a speech to parents about recreational activities in Lawrence. It was very segregated because black students didn't belong to white teams, but they played each other, black teams. And so I was giving a speech that, and said someday that might happen, but right now we have a segregated facility because I was assistant professor to the recreation department. But he hired me because I was an elementary teacher, and he hired me for that, for the summertime, to improve the recreation activity for the black students in Lawrence, black kids. And I did that. And as we went along, and the Fair Housing Ordinance was introducing a whole recreational experience, because real estate agents had to open up their door. And parents who wanted a house, and they looked at some neighborhood, like in Lawrence, I never will forget the family that moved up the street out on the corner on 9th and Main. Because the real estate agent said that, well, the house is there, but at the time, it was a segregated neighborhood. But the real estate agent, who was a white agent serving the black community, provided a house for this family, and they moved in. They called hell for a while, but it gradually changed that as they lived and got to know the family a little better. So integrating neighborhoods were very rigid because they were very stubborn, and they were not going to school together. It didn't happen until after they changed the school system to integrated systems.
Let's talk a little bit, since you brought up the Fair Housing Ordinance, really the work towards bringing that about started much earlier with organizations like the League for the Promotion of Democracy, which I know you were the president of. How did you get involved with that organization in the 1950s, and what other organizations?
Well, the reason, because of their students would talk about me to their parents, how well I treat them. Mm-hmm. And when I treat the white students, when I went to their school, they talked to their parents about me as well. It's how you treat a person. One of the most fascinating experiences, well, not just a game, how they grew when they integrated systems, and before that, how the boys in the same school, white, came together on my square dancing. I taught all types of activities, dancing, and that was the most valuable social adjustment activity. I coached white girls, elementary and junior high basketball teams, where I was at the Central High School, junior high. And I coached the integral recreation in the summertime, boys and girls. But my most fascinating integrated activity was track. Taking them to the track meet, because I ran in the track meet on a black team, not a white team. I ran the quarter mile, and I had a good time. So one of my impact on the city, not only was I a prime character to get rid of, because I had many efforts to try to do that. God blessed me, and so some of the parents and the kids really blessed me. White parents and white children really blessed me, and I give thanks to them. But the problem was, Lawrence was not in favor, from a major standpoint, the fair housing law, because they had made too much money selling white folks white stuff. But as the land began to move from a farming area, because there's a lot of farms in that area, and the land became popular for building and what have you. And when they built them, they were very selective of who moved in them homes. I was one of them. And they didn't appreciate me moving in that neighborhood because I was black, and they threw all kinds of stuff. And it was interesting. So I was very popular in improving the knowledge and purpose of the document of this country, the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment did not specifically identify black people, but they said all persons will become citizens of this country. And that's why on the East Coast, a very rigid population from the white population rejected that. But it ultimately passed because it said we must do this because they had black military. My father was a member of the Army when he was growing up in World War I, and other relatives. The military was very segregated. When I got in the military in the 40s, in 46, it was semi-integrated. It increased its integration as the years passed by. That was one of the most difficult laws to get passed. The Fair Housing Law of Kansas. Because there's that, what's that name of the white organization that was really opposing? What you need to see?
He's taking some notes.
Huh?
Oh, I'm watching you and taking notes.
Well, if you looked at my old and white books, that's what I developed when I was teaching. But Kansas, even today, is not 100% support of the Kansas Fair Housing Law. There were many laws that were passed after World War II to improve the flexibility of black people. Now, Hispanics caught even worse than that because they had to live in a very segregated area where they spoke the same language, Spanish language. On New York City State, what was this? McAllister Elementary School, east of McAllister Elementary School, one of my schools, was a white school that eventually they integrated it. But behind that school were a lot of Mexican families. So it had a very limited, not just for us, but for them. However, sometimes they could go to the show and not have to sit in the black section. They could sit anywhere. Black people could not do that. Well, the main theater down there in Massachusetts, you know what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you could buy a ticket, but you couldn't just sit anywhere.
Right.
If you sat there, they'd make you get up. If you wouldn't get up, they'd put you out. So I didn't like to go, but I went. And as I got married, my wife would go. But it was a very segregated city. And one thing that we had to really improve on was racial relations.
Yeah, tell me about some of the organizations that tried to do that. Like the one you were involved in was the League for Promotion of Democracy. What do you remember about that? That was an integrated group with both white people and black people working together to bring about change. Do you think that was a good group?
PTA, Parent Teachers Association. Parent Teachers Association began to move together. And that was the first powerful, they didn't walk the streets and beat, but they improved the quality of the community by improving the quality of opportunity for all persons. And then the unions was very good at that itself. Okay, and now the Teachers Association were very interested in improving the quality because now Lawrence was beginning to grow and the area for the location of black people were very limited where they could build a house or buy a house. many people recruited from Kansas City and Topeka and Lawrence. Well, those cities themselves were segregated around. You couldn't just go any place you wanted to Topeka until after the passage of the fair housing law and the enforcement of it. Now, sometimes the enforcement was not fair. It just makes sure that you know damn well you don't belong here. Goodbye, get out of here. A lot of stuff took place, a lot of arguments and fights, but not me. I chose not to do it because I had the kids who supported me because I was their teacher. Not their parents, but their kids.
Yeah. Talk to me about the involvement of the Lawrence NAACP, which you were a member of and the president of. How did they try to promote fair housing?
14th Amendment. We use that as the basis for our organization. The NAACP was formulated for that. It was brought to Lawrence. I was responsible for bringing membership there because we have to be able to use two things. God, because the churches were very segregated. I grew up in Armadale. You couldn't go to no white folks' church, even though it was a Catholic. I wasn't Catholic, I was a Baptist. And so it's brought about a change of putting in the emphasis and the gospel in the Bible. Love your neighbor as yourself, irrespective of his sex or race. If you love God and you don't do that, then you violate the Christian revelation. I use that as a thesis for creating a special organization at Baker University. You ever hear about it?
Tell us about it.
At Baker University, it was very segregated. Except when they brought me there, I could go where white black kids couldn't go. I said, no, this ain't gonna happen. We need to change this. We are all children of God, irrespective of your race. And the Bible says, love your neighbor, not love your race neighbor, but love your neighbor as yourself. And as a result, I created an organization because when I met with black students in my classroom, I taught not just black students, I taught all students in anthropology and in the physical education classes. I taught in PE department at Baker and anthropology, and I taught the subject for placement of teachers, not black teachers, but teachers. There's not too many black students in the education department at that time. But what happened, I was received, and I would get the kids to get, and my thesis was this. I said, the women are God's angels. Women are God's angels, irrespective of their race. So therefore, men, you are interested in human beings of the sex. Not because of their race, but you should be interested and related to them and becoming friends to them, irrespective of your race. And all of you women, you have to look at your relationship with God, not with the physical being. The Constitution don't say that, but that's what they mean. All fair housing, all equal opportunity and employment. And that's why I had a really lot of tickets. Because employees will hire you and put you in a special section, a black section. I worked at Armour's Packing House when I was in high school. And I ended up working in a black section in the packing house. And after the fair housing law and the employment law was back, and the unions changed the union was basically white and black. You may belong to the CIO, but the black section, as the state legislatures and other things began to enter because of that, in the Army, it was segregated. I was in a black platoon in the infantry. And the base commander, when he saw me in Hawaii, I was assigned as a military policeman. They didn't have any. From a black section of where I lived, with the black army section in black building, not an integrated housing and military, it was segregated. But I was selected not to be a police officer for just the black people, but to be the police officer to govern the performance of all soldiers. That was interesting. Interesting.
Let's go back to when you were the member of the Lawrence NAACP. In, I think, 1964 and 1965, the Lawrence NAACP.
Well, I use the church as a basis
Okay.
for expanding the teaching of God. I belong to a black Baptist church.
In Lawrence?
No, I went to it,
Okay.
but before I went to Lawrence, I was a member of the Episcopal Church. There was a black Episcopal church in Kansas City, Kansas, on 3rd and Stewart. But the population died, and there was only Versa and me and one other person, a member of the Trinity Episcopal, not Trinity, I hope but I'll get the name of it, Black Episcopal Church in Kansas City, Kansas. And St. Paul were responsible for the district, for the bishop of sending him over to continue that, because it was a black priest that taught it, not a black, it was a white priest. And when he left to went someplace else, and the church had to have an Episcopal priest, then one of the priests from St. Paul's Episcopal Church, which is it's in is that not 18th, it's 10th? It's not 10th and Patterson, but it's off of 10th Street. Right about 1 block north or 2 blocks north of Minnesota. And he would come over, and as his church was growing, he was assigned to what is now called the I still go to that church, St. Matthew's Episcopal Church out on not St. Patrick, I can't think of it. I go there every Sunday. But when we started, there were 12 people. He and myself and that one black woman that came with us, and he had a few friends that went over there. St. Paul's, the Episcopal, not St. Paul's, but I go every Sunday. Is it St. Matthew's Episcopal Church? I think so. It's off of 10th and 10th Street as you go 10th Highway and go west. And so I still go there. But Bishop, at that time, appointed me as the population grew as an ordained deacon in the Episcopal Church, and I served to assist in the development of the church service, as well as performing that. And every Sunday after church, I took communion to the sick and shed in. A whole lot of white folks. There ain't too many. And one of my theme songs, when I walked in their home or the hospital who was sick, I would walk in and after I introduced myself, there's Dr. Milan, come in and take me to the sick person. And I'd come into church, and even though they were not sick, we would gather around a chair in the room, and I'd open up my song. I have myself a special song. The first song I would sing, lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. Oh, it won't be long till you're gonna need somebody to lean on. And we all do. And that one person is God. Lean on God. And once again, I said, if you don't know where to go to chapter 30, 32. And listen and read the subject of God about leaning on each other, become a friend of God, and then you should become a friend of your neighbor. And that was my thesis. But anyway, I served for 25 years, 22 or 25 years, when Bishop said, Dr. Milan, it's time for you to retire. So I did, because he was the bishop. Because I traveled a lot, taught Sunday school, took kids to camping. There were no black families in that St. Paul's Episcopal Church at St. Matthew, but my wife and I, and this one lady that came with us from Trinity, and she died. That's what happened to my population at Trinity. They died. And so today, when the bishop retired me, the congregation got together after the motor vehicle department took my driver's license and developed a system to make sure I had a way to get to church. It's too far to walk from here, out 10 Highway, down the way up to St. Matthew's Episcopal Church.
That's wonderful. Let me take you back to 1967 when Lawrence passed the Fair Housing Ordinance, and there was a group called the Fair Housing Coordinating Committee, and many organizations were part of that. The NAACP, the League of Women.
I was a part of that.
But also the churches were very much involved. Tell me about how the churches, both white and black, helped to fight.
Because I was a black member that taught their kids. I even come to their church once in a while. I knew all the black preachers, and I used that for the same way I used 30-32. How can you teach, love your neighbor as yourself? How can you teach and you don't know how to sit down and to help the child to overcome looking at a white boy and a white girl, and they look at you and you look at them and separate each other? Because generally the school was the second place to begin to enter into relationship, racial relation. Not the military, but it did after World War II. They said, oh, we got to change this a little bit. They did. And I was a football player for the team in Hawaii and made another mistake. I ended up being chosen as a second string quarterback in a professional football team and played first team quarterback, right halfback, first string, right safety, same thing. And I didn't weigh but 150 pounds. But I knew how to hide the football. They don't do that today. They get the ball, jump back. Don't do a damn thing with it. They don't know how to take and hide that football when you get it from the quarterback and make a turn and do something with the ball. And them going that way and you go that way. And they don't know where the other ball is. But that was the purpose. not just to pass a law for law standpoint, but using the Bible as a thesis for passing a law to improve the relationship between human beings. It wasn't said from a Christian standpoint. I said it does, but it speaks from the Bible. Read it.
Do you remember any of the other people who were involved in that Fair Housing Coordinating Committee? Do you remember Reverend Doolin from the Plymouth Congregational Church, who was in charge of that organization?
Yeah, many preachers of the church were in charge of the organization of that
So
church.
the churches are very much involved in that effort.
They were. Why? You know why? They can't preach Christian emphasis just from a black standpoint. The racial relationship of God is all purpose. You can't look at that. He ain't a black God. He's not a Mexican God. So that was my thesis. And so it improved the quality of, I don't remember all their names, there were a lot of them.
Right. Many years ago.
Yeah. Well,
There were many-
but the reason I was selected, because I taught their kids.
Right. So you had a very good reputation. So did people look to you as a leader of the black community because of your strong reputation?
In part. But I was a leader of the community, period.
Very good.
I was serving the representative of us as separate people. And square dancing was one of my interracial activities, as well as basketball, but not as famous. And then we had relay teams. Relay team were made of a runner, a sport, not a race, etc. So I was emphasizing. That's the reason I became very active with that organization. But I was also a very popular target.
Right.
From the black community that didn't want to do that, and the white community didn't want it. God saved me. I'm not kidding. He really saved me. Because there were folks, black folks as well as white folks, who did not want to come together.
So even some African American people were opposed to some of the things you were trying to do.
Yes.
And why was that?
Because they feel like it's not providing them an opportunity. They could not go anywhere and get a job. They had to get a special job. They could not go anywhere and get a house. They could not go anywhere in the school system.
Oh, perfect.
Somebody knocking at my door.
We're doing an interview.
As a child of God. And I didn't finish my story with you about Baker. When I became a professor at Baker, I was the first black professor in the history of that school. Are you familiar with Baldwin City, Kansas?
A little bit. I visited.
It is not a populated system of racial mixes, Mexican or black. Mostly a white population agriculture. It's basically farming. And the school system was 290,000 white. My point is, only white students in that town. There were a few Mexicans, but they were living farming nearby. But not that many. Most of them were all white. And so when they created an organization on campus, there was no black fraternity or sorority. None. But there was what we call there were members from the black fraternity and white fraternity and white sorority. I was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. But I was not going to open an organization just for black people. So, have you ever heard that song, God's Angels? Have you heard that song? You don't sing that song?
No, I don't think I've heard that.
How could you check with a woman you don't sing that song? That's what I did. I used a thesis, 32. I said, you are all children of God, male or female. But you are special creators. Men don't have babies. God created you for the purpose of reproducing the population. Another human being. That's why you are a special creator of God. And so I say you're one of God's angels. And I taught them that song. Oh, angel, earth angel, will you be mine, my darling dear? I will love you all the time. And look at, yeah, I will love you all the time. Just an angel of God. Love your neighbor as yourself, not the black or the white. And a young man from South Africa said, Dr. Milan, we use this term, maybe not knowing about that Bible reference, but that's what we say. Love your neighbor as yourself, but we use a special language, Muungano. And with a professor at Becker University, our name was there, she said, right there in that chair right there, I sat there, and she produced a book. And I let them look at it, and someone took a lot of special stuff out of my book that they bought. And the title of it is The History of Muungano. So many of my pages have been taken out by that, because I'm trying to get population again. Here you go.
So Dr. Milan, let me take you back again to the Fair Housing Ordinance in Lawrence. And in January 1967, the Fair Housing Coordinating Committee went to the Lawrence Human Relations Commission, and you were one of the people who spoke and made the case for why Lawrence needed a fair housing ordinance. Do you remember?
Yes, and I use this the same as I use it today. We are all creatures of God.
Right. And I think
We are all creatures of God, and God is not separating us. It's that the human being are developing cultural ways and saying that we come better off this way, and maybe we'll think about God later on. Even the churches develop black and white churches, not God's churches. You could not go to a white church and find a black person in that church, yet they're talking about Christianity. I said, you're talking about white Christianity. You're not talking about God's Christianity. Oh, I caught my hell. I'm going to tell you. The people did everything they can to try to get rid of me. But God protected me. They did guns, shooting, and I had a lot of things.
Right. Well, so the Human Relations Commission was very convinced by the case that was made, and so they took the ordinance to the City Commission, and you testified before the City Commission. Do you remember
I testified before him. That's right. The same thing I'm talking to you about.
Did they seem very positive to your message?
Some did, some didn't. Because this country was not built on people, but they think white folks were the reason this country came into being. And they don't think that other folk have a right to come and do that. That's why I'm going to say to you, my client worked with me and I worked with her, Hillary Clinton, in addressing some of these problems that people are facing. I said, how can you go to church on Sunday and preach about this and this and that, and yet you cannot come out of the church and preach about the gospel of God, of all people, because you are a creator of God. If you don't understand that, then you are sure enough a devil. And that's my thesis. It's still my thesis, even here.
Well, the City Commission passed the ordinance 4-1 in favor, and
they didn't pass it simply because it's a law, because of the thesis of my...
so they were convinced by people like you that it was the right thing to do in the eyes of God and of equality.
Exactly. You cannot improve the relationship of people based upon physical existence. You've got to do that on a improvement of spiritual relationship. And who are you related to? Now, some people say, yeah. I say, you must be related to Satan. You give other people hell. Satan came along to do just that. And there are people today who still believe in Satan. And my thesis said, no, irrespective of your physical condition. Mungano does not look at the physical condition. They look at all of God's angels. And the boys that come on and they say, yeah, they're angels, baby. And that's my thesis.
Right.
And what helped that law pass was the emphasis of the Christian education about the relationship of church and God's people. And when you read the Bible, if you don't pay attention to 30:32, then you ain't a Christian. You're related to the man downstairs called the devil.
Right. Now, after the law was passed, do you think the real estate agents then changed their practices? Do you think things got better?
Not 100%, no. White real estate agents continued to go to primary system of the white population. And when a black person came along, they try to find a black location. I'm not speaking theory, I'm speaking experience. Because for putting a black person in a white neighborhood, they caught hell then and now.
Yeah. But there were many white families that supported having African Americans move into their neighborhood. I know about.
After they understand their religion.
Okay.
If the preacher didn't help, then it didn't cause them to change their attitude.
So the church has played an important role in changing attitude.
They important role in changing attitude.
Good.
Some didn't then, some did now.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about the swimming pool in Lawrence. I know you were involved in efforts to integrate the swimming pool. Were you involved in the 1960s?
You damn right I was.
What was your involvement in the protest in 1960 against the Jayhawk plunge?
We couldn't go there. We could not go to that pool when they opened up that pool. Just the same as we cannot go and sit anywhere in a show. We had special seats. It took them a long time to change that. After the swimming pool changed, letting them come and swim anywhere. We could not go and swim anywhere. We go on a special day that set aside for black people to come, which we said, no, 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 no. We are not going to go just on a black day. We are going to go when you open up the pool. See, because I was from the city recreation department, I said, we don't just have things for black students or white students. We have a recreation activity for all students that come to the community building down on the main street. You know, the community building downtown? Well, we would go there and we'd all play together. No, we must learn how to live together. Now, we're not in the same neighborhood. Now we begin to come to school together. And when we come to school together, we got to look at my neighbor. Have you ever had anybody throw bombs at your house?
No, sir.
You haven't?
No.
You have, haven't you?
No, sir.
You know, it's pathetic.
It is. It's horrible.
But my position was not just to declaration for black students. I was assistant superintendent of the Lawrence Recreation Department for all population. And I didn't teach based upon race. I taught based upon sexual relationship, because you are God's angel and you are God's angel too, but not the kind of angel that she is. She is created for the purpose of taking that seed and producing another human being. Your job is to communicate that relationship of being a human being, one of God's children. And I still operate that way today.
Now, in November 1967, the bond issue finally passed after it failed twice. To pass,
You know why it
to
failed
raise money.
twice?
Tell me why it failed twice.
Because the population in the local population for the enforcement of the opposition to what that law meant to them. We don't want mixed race. We don't want this. We want to continue to be the boss, white folks.
Yeah. Now, when it finally passed in November 1967, I know you had a role in helping to get it to pass. Tell us a little
I
bit.
did, because I was preaching then the same as I'm telling you.
Right. But didn't you encourage some youths to go around door to door and encourage people to vote yes?
Yes, I did. You know why? Not just to vote yes, that you're going to communicate God's message. You are one of God's creatures. You are one of his angels. You are not an angel as a man, but you are a supporter of God's angel. Don't the man support the family in marriage?
Absolutely.
But a lot of times it's not looked upon like that. We have a special role as a human being, irrespective of your race. You have the same role. Every man has the same role of doing what Matthew says. If you don't, you will be hell. So that was my thesis, to communicate that to the preachers who didn't preach that. They preached about God's relationship with the white church. He didn't say white church, but he did not talk about it from that perspective. In the community, some of them did not. Some of them didn't want you to come to that church, and some of them didn't want white folks to come to black church, because they were accustomed to non-religious relationship. But that was my thesis as a teacher, as a student, as I grew up.
Tell me a little bit about after the Fair Housing Ordinance passed in 1967 and then the pool bond issue passed. Things didn't necessarily get better in Lawrence. In fact, they got worse with the violence in 1969 and 1970. Tell me about some of your involvements and experiences with the violence.
That's why we brought the NAACP to Lawrence and in Kansas and in this country. That's why I grew up, because the object was not to just look at your race. You are looking at the 14th Amendment of the Constitution wasn't born just to protect black folk. All people who live in this country must contribute to its development. And that's what I use. I still use. My mother and my father taught. My mother was an Indian. My father was a slave on the Milan, Tennessee, and she was a Depew Indian. And that relationship increased my theory of God's relationship. It's a big difference. It was not easy. It was passed because many people voted yes for a popular standpoint, not for economic standpoint, not for social standpoint, not for increasing the relationship of American citizens. No. Have you ever been someplace and they wouldn't let you either in or go to this because you were a black citizen? No, you were not an American citizen. You were a black citizen. And those things happen. I worked at Armour's Packing House and they had a black section. And as it grew in population, it gradually, the union changed the integration of employment stations, except for women. Women today are not equally treated in employment. I had a lady that was the clerk for the Bond Spring School District for 20 some odd years. And when I moved in the area, she contacted me because I was a member of the NAACP. and I am still a member of the NAACP. I didn't see the NAACP as just a black organization. I said we are gathering together as black people to change the relationship of us in this country in all spectrum of the culture of this country. And that's why we have to emphasize the primitive laws that emphasize God's message. We are all children of God. Just because your face and your color is one, you're still a child of God. And that's how I still operate that way. That people still don't operate that way, even here.
Right. Were you surprised in 1969 when violence broke out in Lawrence? Did that surprise you, or did you
No,
think there
I
was
tried to prevent it
Tell us about some of the things you were involved in trying to prevent some of it.
through the church, ministry, preachers. I said, you have a responsibility of improving the relationship. And the white preacher had said the same thing. You have a responsibility of improving God's children relationship. Not just because of your church. Because your church is supposed to be a member of God's community. If you don't recognize that and still look at it independent as a race group, then you will not make a change. This country, the way they treated the Indians when they came over here, because the Indians were in charge of everything. They didn't see themselves as in charge, living off the gifts of God. And so the white man, when he came here for the purpose of becoming the owner, leader, director, and controlling who did what. And it's still that way. I was telling you about the employment of a young lady who was employed as a clerk in the cafeteria in the school system in Bonner Spring. And one day she'd been very successful, and her evaluation by the Board of Education and the school board was very excellent. Excellent educational and working responsibility, because they're now an integrated school system. All children were treated the same. As a black woman, she helped the white kids, the black kids, etc. And one day, a young man, a white man, came and was hired, and he had a daughter that needed a job. And they fired this black woman, and she didn't know what the hell to do, except she heard about me as a fighter for the improvement of black people. And she made a stake and came to me. And so what I did, I listened to her, and I said, okay, we're gonna file a complaint, but before we do that, we're gonna get some information. She gave me her record of history written by the School of Education, how well she performed, because Bonner Spring was then beginning to get integrated. Having white kids and black kids in the same school and eat the same place in the cafeteria. And she was treating all those kids the same. And so I said, okay, give me copies. I got copies of those. And I prepared them and sent them to the court that was made the decision. And the lawyer got a copy of it. And I said to them, on what basis did you see to fire this black woman when her performance on the job was excellent? Not based upon race, upon her way of working with and helping all of the people who came through her cafeteria and how to help them, black or white or Mexican or whatever. So why do you fire her? And you wrote this information about how excellent it was. And guess what? The court changed their decision, but could not get her fired. They gave her $35,000. And she called me up. She said, Dr. Marlon, how much do I owe you? I said, not a damn thing. That's my job, to help you get equality of American law. And even today, every month, she'll come by and give me $20.
Well,
She don't take it. She developed a stamp population, a stamp office, as with her money, and ran a stamp. And she bring me stamps, 10 stamps a week, a month. But I didn't ask for any money. I'm not hired. I'm dealing with my mama and my papa. Well, she was an Indian, and he was a man who who was a slave on a white man's farm, lived a different life, trying to create equality of all people and the equality of his children. And he did that. All of us, 4 of us, his kids. We learned how to get along with the white court. Go ahead and answer it and
Okay.
tell them I'm in conference.
Hello, this is Dr. Marlin's office.
Office?
Oh, wrong. Okay. Hello, this is Dr. Marlin's residence. Can I help you?
Who is it?
It's an important political survey recording. You want me to hang up on him?
Yeah, tell them I'm gonna vote. I'm gonna vote Democrat.
Okay, the doctor will be voting Democrat. Thanks so much for your call. All right, talk to you soon.
The reason I'm gonna vote for Hillary Clinton, I don't call this guy, what's his name, Donald what?
Donald Trump?
No, it's not. Donald Dump.
Oh,
He preaches and he talks and he do whatever he can to degrade her. I was responsible not just degrading women for sex, but when I went into this young lady's apartment and not a house, and got that population and presented it to the Board of Education, they were shocked. Why did we fire her? When we give this kind of writing for 20 some odd years, the evaluation of her, why did we fire her? Only because they had a little white girl to take her place. After 2 years, they tried to fire the little white girl, but her daddy wouldn't let them. This country was established on racial emphasis because Indians were not viewed as same human beings as the white man when they came to this country. So that's why the white population of white seniority became a part of American culture. And it's still a part of American culture. There's been a tremendous improvement of living together. I wouldn't be living here if that had not been improved. Those laws had not been passed. The laws were in passing to put into practice the practice of God.
Dr. Milan, I know you've been working for equality for many, many years. One of the things you did in Lawrence in the 1960s is you ran for the city commission twice. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, you failed, but talk to us a little bit about why you decided to run for the city commission. What did you hope to accomplish?
Because I'm black. I was black, that's why. Not because of my knowledge and influence. They didn't want to see a black man in that position to tell white folks what to do. That's why. I didn't care. I didn't run because I was black. I would run because I wanted to develop the thesis of the Bible of living together and helping each other and building things together. I still have that same attitude. I don't change. I'm only 88 years old. I ain't gonna change. I got this knee on my 88th birthday. But I learned that from my mother and my father. Why a black man and an Indian living together, raising us differently. Because there were white folks and black folks who didn't like Indians. They still don't. But that group thesis, they still operate that way. Still operate of bringing kids on. 2 weeks ago, a young man who was a graduate of Baker University, and he came here and knocked on my door, said, Dr. Milan, I gotta see you. I read about you in Ungano, and I became a member of Ungano, and I enjoy it, and I appreciate what you did for them and for us. I said, well, I appreciate what you do for me. But, you know, it's not interesting. So what I did then, and I still do, I use the Bible as that thesis to improve relationship. Race relation in Lawrence was very tough. Very tough. But I helped the kids who went out for basketball and at the high school and changed their attitude about it and made the team. And the same way at junior high.
Now, when you first started teaching in the Lawrence schools, were the sports teams segregated?
Nope. Then you see black athletes as a possibility of performing. It was gradually at that time, slowly graduation of black folks in professional sports. I had a chance to go to professional football team, and I didn't want to have a professional. I was an all-star, 7th division in college basketball and a college team. We were in a northern school. And I was selected, not because I was black, because of the way I played football, the way I handled the ball, and increased the population and the success of the team. They didn't look at that as a black. They looked at me as a football player. And today they don't have that. They don't have very many creative stuff in professional football. I don't watch it.
Do you think KU sports played a role in helping to improve things in Lawrence with people like Wilt Chamberlain who came to play? Did that help with?
No, my wife dealt with Will Chamberlain. My wife dealt with all the black athletes that came through because of me. And they saw that, and they saw how important it was to not just be a black player, but to develop team relationship on the team during the game, not after the game. Now sometimes, but during the game you gotta look at team relationship not as a race, but as a skill that you have and they have. And teaching, that's what I do. My mother and my father taught me how to behave, because in my population there were gangs that hated white folks and Mexicans and created all kind of stuff. A couple of weeks ago, I was in this group here. They took a tour to Armadale. That's where I grew up. Armadale was very, very segregated. Black folk lived only in a white section of Armadale. Mexicans lived in the other section, but they had a few white folks that lived with, but not black folks. And there was no excuse. You couldn't go down to the store and shop. You had to go through and shop and come through the black section. I don't know where you were. Cats, all them stores. Today that's changed. Not because they changed it, because we said we are citizens of this country, the same as you are. And we pursue that. And we have to teach racial relationship. We have to teach Bible relationship more than racial. You don't understand the Bible? I can appreciate that because Satan is telling you what the hell to do. And I still do that, right? Even here. Then I don't look at racial relationship. I look at human relationship. So that was my thesis whenever I get my teaching and preaching. And one of my most difficult situations was causing and maintaining the black organization I created for equal opportunity through the NAACP. Still doing that. The NAACP is seeking racial relation, not black relation. Improve the quality of life of all people and opportunity. You select the black person because he or she is denied that opportunity. I don't think if you have evaluated the employment of women, white women get a better population than black women, but all women get discriminated. The same thing. They only get the second portion of the paycheck and what have you. One of the most famous songs I remember, I still sing it, because they say it every day. Every day at Packet House, I was living in Armadale. I'm working at Armor's Packet House. My father worked there as well. And every Friday at noon, the paycheck, the clerk would come through and hand you your paycheck. Another dollar, another day, another dollar. I still say that. Another day, another dollar. But you could spend that damn dollar anywhere. You ever hear that song, Kansas City? Going to Kansas City, here I come. There's little women, and I'm going to get me. They say one, I say two. On the 18th and Vine, Lincoln College theater was a very popular theater for black people, because they could go in that theater and owned and run by black people. Said any damn way you want to in the hospital at Lincoln. Cold down the street from there in Kansas City, Missouri. In Kansas City, Kansas, they built a theater on 10th Street, and I know it's on 10th Street. I can't think that it's Crossing Street, but only black people could go there. White came if they wanted to, but a black man could not go to any school downtown Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, until the law was passed. And when that left, it was not an easy law for you to go to that church or to go to that school or to go to that show. Okay.
The gym, right? The gym? Is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Gym theater?
Mm-hmm. That's one of the theaters that was located for black folks. And we went. And only when they passed a law to improve the equality of movement in educational, social, as well as physical places for all races. It's not a racial relation citizenship. All persons born in this country become citizens of this country. And that's why we changed it, and we're still trying to change it.
Right.
That what we haven't achieved, because the second most difficult issue is women, changing the equality of women in this country, because they are still being paid less money by the man for the same damn job.
Dr. Milan, you left Lawrence in 1971. Why did you leave? Was it because of threats, or did you simply have other opportunities that you wanted to take up elsewhere?
No, I left because of the Klux Klan. The whole time I was there, I got the threat. I said, I need to make a move for the benefit of my children. And that's what I did. I found a house, and the last one I built in Kansas City, Kansas, was right up the street, 7103 Waverly Avenue. I got more criticism from a section of the white population, not the whole population, because there were some who got to know us, my wife and my 4 children. And I still operate the same way. And the reason I got a better friendship with the white families in the neighborhood is because of my thesis. What church you belong to? I told them. Episcopal Church. Not a black church. I grew up in one. But when I moved, there was no black church, but there was the Black Episcopal Church. And I said, I'm not going to give up my religion because I'm the only black person. So Trinity Episcopal Church in Lawrence, Kansas. You know where that church is? Yeah, right on the corner, downtown Lawrence.
Yep.
My family and I went there and were well received. And they gave me a heck of a responsibility of teaching Sunday school, and doing this and teaching the young. And I had a youth group that really supported me. Not because I was race, but because I preached this. You gotta love your neighbor. Not just a woman because she's a woman, and not just because she's your race, but that's human creation. Understand your role as a creator of God and to carry out God's responsibility. Every day I sing that song as I walk around the building, outside and inside in the hallway. Just a closer walk with thee. Not with just black folks. Walk with Jesus Christ. And when I sing that song, I sing it to you. We're going to walk with Jesus Christ and me, because I'm going to think about you while I'm walking, irrespective of your race and your sex or your gender. And that's how I operate. Everybody don't love me. I have many people who hate me, and they're taking my life. But I have more people who protected me. And more kids as well as white kids and black kids and God. Because I strongly believe if you ever go to Baldwin, go and sit with the people in Mungano. I can't travel that way. I don't have a car. I can't even go to the show. I cannot go to church unless I walk several miles to my church, Episcopal Church. Oh, they have it here. But why should I give up my church? And they said, because we're not going to let you. And they bring me up. And doesn't cost me one dime.
That's great. After you left Lawrence, you went to work for the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and still worked on fair housing issues. Tell me about that.
Well, I became a fair housing employee of the 7th District Employment Office. It was... We were located downtown Kansas City, Missouri. And I was assigned as a fair housing responsibility and discrimination in other areas. And I investigated complaints of discrimination in employment and housing and what have you. I found many cases where a house was changed in a white neighborhood, and they bummed that house and did everything they could. And I haven't changed. And there were black folks who wanted to build guns up and become a strong army against white folks. I said, nope, that's not going to work. You know who you respect more than God? Satan. Satan don't particularly care about particular integration, fair housing. Satan continues about only black people do what black people want, only white people do what white people want. Hate each other. Don't love each other. But there are people today who still don't do that. We still have that issue. And that's what I preached and advocated. As I would take students to put on a demonstration of a physical education activity, and one was square dancing and one was games, to parents and others. The children loved me not because I was black, because I emphasized loving, not just because you're white, because we're working together. My job is to teach you L-O-V-E, love. Love is not just a physical activity, it's a social activity. And that today we haven't overcome that. We have not overcome that. But I don't care, I'm gonna do my best. My best.
Very good.
One of the most important things in my life was singing to women. I still do. I don't sing to men. I sing with them. But I teach us to sing to women because I really view them as God's angel, and we are angels too. But God created them in a special way to take the seed and produce another human being. And we are to love that human being because we gave the seed from God with that potential. So God's gift to me, and I pass it on through the process of sex. And now, look at me. I have good friends, irrespective of the race. Race relation is a very strong relation that needs to continue to be psychologically emphasized in that book, because Satan's still teaching. Did you see what happened on TV the other day? Do you ever listen to Channel 4? Men are still shooting women. Men are still shooting each other. Why? Satan is telling them what to do, not God. See, there's still that population that take the lessons of Satan today in business, in social activities, in homes, in group gatherings. They let how women and men are separated in two ways. How Asian, African American, Indian are treated differently. My dad was that way because he was a slave of a white man population, a slave owner of a white man slave paper in Milan, Tennessee. That's how he got the name Milan. He had sex with a slave woman. He didn't. His boss did had sex with the slave woman and gave birth, and then gave him the name Milan. That's how he got the name Milan. He wasn't no name Milan. She wasn't either. And that's what I use that name for. We have and my father's complexion was very, very, not like this white. I got my complexion from my mother. Red. She was an Indian. And they moved from Oklahoma. What's the name of that? Starts with the D. They moved from there because he was a cowboy. He traveled like I don't know what. Had a big gun on his side. He moved from there to Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha was very serious, a northern city. And they called themselves integrated because they had a section of town for which black people could live and the Mexicans could live. And they haven't changed that much because the people didn't move out of the population. They had kids and they moved to the same neighborhood. But they moved to Kansas City, to Armadale, and he went to work at the Pampas Packing House. And that's where I grew up. But it was very segregated in Armadale. I don't know if you're familiar with Osage, which is one of the popular cities in Armadale. Kansas City Street, go through. On the 7th and Osage, every Saturday, the Olympic, not Olympic, what do they call it? Optimist Club. It's a white Optimist Club. I can't think of the name of it, but anyway, black folks created an organization like that. But when I was in the second and third grade, third and fourth grade, I was Joe Louis and some of the other boxers were beginning to grow up and box, and they developed the boxing sport, and this white organization was created a boxing opportunity for those kids there in Armadale on 7th and Osage. And every Saturday, they would volunteer to sign up to box and someone their age and their team and race, not race, but they mixed it. And I was chosen to go boxing one day. Now, if you win your 3 rounds, you got a loaf of tasty bread. Back in the late 30s, early 30s, that was tremendous. A loaf of tasty bread, and you take it home. But sometimes some folks didn't get home. But when I won my round, I got home because I took my loaf of bread and ran like hell. They couldn't catch me. That's why I learned my track. My older brother, his name is Clarence, he taught me how to box because boxing had become a very interesting sport in this country. And he taught me how to box. And I learned how to box. I didn't weigh very much, but 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 4th grade, different. But when we moved to Wyandotte, they didn't have that kind of activity. So I gave up boxing. And I was playing baseball, and I was teaching my brother how to bat, my older brother, and I was pitching, and I got hit in the left eye with a bat, which was a tube taken from the wall of the garage with a nail in it, and it ruined my eye. And as I grew up, I had to have eye surgery. And I had to have eye surgery in my right eye and my left eye. And when I lost that vision, because I was in high school and then married, and I was living right up the street, they took my car. I gave it to the rest of the family because I couldn't drive. But my wife took me everywhere I needed to go. And so that's what I did. But that was where I learned that it's by God's creation that I'm able to survive. And I do that today. So teaching is not just going to college and learning from the classroom content and methods that you are to impart to collective bodies in the school system by the grace of race, not race, but age and sex, women role, male role, and what have you. Well, I don't do that. I said, physical education is not a subject that emphasizes physical being. The teaching you of various games and activities and movement. It's teaching you how to use the tools that you have, your arms, your legs, your eyes, and your brain, and your mouth. How to use that information collectively as a group activity. And I still teach that. But I had some white teachers that when I was teaching at the 6th and 7th grade, said, Dr. Milan, why don't we get together and go to Kansas City and have a good time? I said, white person. I said, okay, but before that, you have to give me a check for $1,000. They said, I don't have that kind of money. I said, too bad, we can't go. She didn't want to go with me because I was me. I was a black man, and I wasn't living like other black men. A lot of black men lived the same as I did, respectful and so forth. And I sang a lot, and they liked the way I sang. And I sang this one song to my wife for 49 years. She died on our 49th year birthday anniversary. And you probably have heard that song, but you probably don't sing it. When you get married, and I had a couple want me to sing that song at their wedding. Since I met you, baby, my whole life has changed. Since I met you, baby, my whole life has changed. And everybody tell me that I ain't the same. I said, really, I'm not the same because you won't let me want to do what I want to do. But God says, love your neighbor as yourself. Not just for sex, not just for fun, not just to pick up somebody, not just to beat up somebody or to try this. No. Develop a relationship of how to know that person and how to understand that person and you and your situation for the purpose of your advancement of growth and relationship of human being. God says, love your neighbor as yourself. And you got to learn how to do that. I said, now the reason I teach you physical education in the classroom is not just an activity, but learn how to take the message of a physical activity to perform and how to join that performance with your neighbor. They call it teamwork. But how to do that and have a good time. Loving your neighbor through that. And not only that, take the method of listening to that instruction when your teacher is giving you instruction in the classroom of how to solve a problem. So listen to the parts of the problem that she tells you about that you need to address and relate. This and that. And as a result, improve your ability. How to write a sentence. How to identify what is this thing you're writing about called the subject. And how to use the other words to make it a valuable, easy communication activity, skill. And that was my teaching. I still teach that way.
That's wonderful. Dr. Milan, I have run out of questions, and we've been going for a long time. Scott, did you have anything you wanted to ask about?
No.
Anything else you'd like to add that we didn't cover?
Now, if you want to take a can of pop to your wife or your friend.
Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Well, I want to thank you. Another thing is that if you'd like to have me come to Lawrence for a special occasion, I'd be glad to come, except I ain't got nowhere to get there.
Okay.
You're too damn far to walk.
We are actually, I think, in the spring, in April, there's going to be some commemorations of the Fair Housing Ordinance, and this is part of that project. But I know Scott and the city, and probably the Watkins Museum, would love to have you come back to Lawrence, and we will figure out a way to get you there if you want to come and participate in those activities.
I could catch a bus.
Yeah,
We'll have somebody.
I
we'll
don't
make sure
have.
we get you transportation.
Listen, I don't have no money. My check, my wife, Alberta, when I retired, she developed how to handle my check. Because when they gave me the check at work, I brought it and gave it to her, and she decided what I needed. and what I didn't need. But what she would do, she would fry some chicken. Man, she was a good chicken fry. But that's where we got married. Not because of a sexual relationship, because she was a damn good cook. Well, gentlemen,
Thank you so much.
if I could be of any help to you,
Okay.
and if you'd like to have me come and